The year 1939 cast a long shadow over Europe. The world had watched with growing unease as Adolf Hitler, fueled by nationalist fervor and expansionist ambitions, tightened his grip on Germany. The Nazi Party, with its chilling ideology of Aryan supremacy and its brutal suppression of dissent, had transformed the nation into a formidable military power. The echoes of the First World War, a conflict that had ravaged the continent just 2 decades earlier, still resonated in the collective memory. Millions had perished in the trenches, and the scars of that devastating war remained etched upon the landscape and the psyche of Europe. The Treaty of Versailles, intended to ensure lasting peace, had instead sown the seeds of resentment and instability. Germany, burdened with crippling reparations and territorial losses, seethed with a desire for revenge and a yearning for its lost glory. It was against this backdrop of simmering tensions and unresolved grievances that the world lurched towards another global conflict. Hitler's ambition knew no bounds. He dreamed of an empire stretching from the Atlantic to the Urals, a vast expanse ruled by the Aryan race. He had already annexed Austria and Czechoslovakia, emboldened by the inaction of the Western powers. His appetite for conquest, far from being satiated, only grew with each act of aggression. In a move that shocked the world, Hitler signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union in August 1939. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, as it became known, was a cynical alliance of convenience between 2 ideologically opposed regimes. It bought Hitler time to consolidate his gains in the West and prepare for his ultimate objective, the conquest of the Soviet Union. For Joseph Stalin, the Soviet leader, the pact offered a temporary respite from the threat of war. He used this period to strengthen the Red Army and fortify Soviet defenses. However, he harbored no illusions about Hitler's ultimate intentions. The 2 dictators were merely postponing an inevitable clash of titans, a clash that would determine the fate of Europe and the world. The pact sent shockwaves through the international community. It shattered any remaining hopes of containing Nazi aggression through diplomacy. The world watched with bated breath as the 2 dictators, each driven by their own ruthless ambitions, prepared for the inevitable showdown. The uneasy truce was short-lived. On June 22, 1941, Hitler unleashed Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. It was the largest military operation in human history, a colossal gamble that would ultimately decide the outcome of the Second World War. The Wehrmacht, the German armed forces, rolled across the Soviet border in a seemingly unstoppable torrent of steel and firepower. 3 massive army groups comprising over 3 million men spearheaded the invasion. They were supported by thousands of tanks, artillery pieces and aircraft, representing the pinnacle of Nazi military might. The invasion caught the Soviet Union off guard, despite numerous warnings from their intelligence services. Stalin, blinded by his own paranoia and miscalculations, had refused to believe that Hitler would break the pact so soon. The Red Army, though numerically superior, was ill-prepared for the ferocity and speed of the German onslaught. The German advance was swift and brutal. The Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, quickly gained air superiority, relentlessly bombing Soviet airfields, communication centers, and troop concentrations. Panzer divisions, spearheaded by the formidable Tiger and Panther tanks, sliced through Soviet defenses, exploiting gaps and encircling entire armies. The Red Army fought bravely but was often outmaneuvered and outgunned. The sheer scale of the invasion, coupled with the tactical brilliance of the German generals, threatened to overwhelm the Soviet defenses entirely. The fate of the Soviet Union, and indeed the entire world, hung precariously in the balance. The Eastern Front, as the battleground between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union came to be known, was a theater of unparalleled brutality and suffering. It was a war of annihilation, a clash of ideologies that would leave millions dead and vast swaths of land in ruins. The vast distances, harsh climate, and logistical challenges of the Eastern Front posed formidable obstacles to both sides. The scorching summers gave way to bitterly cold winters, with temperatures plummeting to unimaginable depths. The muddy Rasputitsa, the spring and autumn seasons, when unpaved roads became impassable seas of mud, further hampered military operations. The war on the Eastern Front was characterized by its ferocity, its unforgiving nature, and the sheer scale of human suffering. Prisoners of war were often treated with unimaginable cruelty, and civilians were caught in the crossfire, their lives upended by the relentless fighting. Cities and towns were reduced to rubble, their inhabitants forced to flee or endure unimaginable hardships. The Eastern Front was not merely a clash of armies, but a battle for survival, a struggle for the very soul of two nations locked in a fight to the death. The early hours of June 22, 1941, shattered the fragile peace that had settled over Europe. At dawn, the thunder of artillery and the roar of aircraft engines announced the beginning of Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's long-planned invasion of the Soviet Union. The Wehrmacht, confident after its swift victories in Poland and France, surged across the border in a three-pronged assault. The initial German advance was breathtaking in its speed and ferocity. The Red Army, still reeling from Stalin's purges and unprepared for the sheer scale of the attack, was caught off guard. Soviet soldiers, many of whom had been roused from their sleep by the explosions, found themselves facing a relentless enemy armed with superior firepower and driven by an ideology that viewed them as subhuman. The Luftwaffe, having quickly gained air superiority, rained down bombs on airfields, communication centers, and troop concentrations, sowing chaos and disrupting Soviet defenses. Panzer divisions, spearheaded by the formidable Panzer IV tanks, exploited the breakthroughs, bypassing pockets of resistance and driving deep into Soviet territory. The element of surprise, coupled with the Wehrmacht's tactical prowess, yielded stunning results in the opening days of the campaign. As the German war machine rumbled eastward, the news of the invasion sent shockwaves through the Soviet Union. The initial disbelief quickly gave way to a mixture of fear, anger, and a steely determination to resist the invaders. The vastness of the country, which had always been a source of pride, now seemed like a daunting liability in the face of the German onslaught. The German invasion strategy, known as Blitzkrieg, relied on speed, surprise, and overwhelming force. Panzer divisions, supported by mobile artillery and dive bombers, would punch through enemy lines. The vast distances and challenging terrain of the Eastern Front presented new challenges. Despite these challenges, the Wehrmacht made remarkable progress in the early months. Army Group North advanced rapidly through the Baltic states, capturing thousands of Soviet prisoners. Army Group Center drove towards Moscow, wreaking havoc on the Soviet Western Front. The Red Army, though suffering heavy losses, fought back with increasing tenacity. Soviet soldiers, inspired by patriotism, inflicted significant casualties on the invaders. However, they were hampered by poor leadership, inadequate equipment, and Luftwaffe attacks. The Red Air Force struggled to contest German air superiority, leaving Soviet ground troops vulnerable. As the summer of 1941 wore on, the German advance continued unabated. The Wehrmacht seemed poised to deliver a knockout blow to the Soviet Union. However, the Red Army, though battered, was far from defeated. The vast distances, Soviet tenacity, and the approaching Russian winter would soon test the limits of German military might. Among the three German army groups, Army Group North aimed to capture Leningrad. This historic city held immense strategic and symbolic value. Its capture would be a major propaganda victory for the Nazis. Leading Army Group North was Field Marshal Wilhelm Ritter von Lieb. Under his command was the 4th Panzer Group, led by General Erich Hoepner. Their objective was to advance through the Baltic states and seize Pskov. The German advance faced fierce resistance from the Red Army. Soviet troops fought bravely but were often outmaneuvered. The Luftwaffe bombed Soviet positions, disrupting communications. Despite the Red Army's defense, the German advance was relentless. By July 10, 1941, the 4th Panzer Group reached Pskov. The city fell, opening the road to Leningrad. The siege of Leningrad, a brutal chapter of World War II, was about to begin. As the Wehrmacht closed in on Leningrad, panic gripped the city. The horrors of the German occupation had reached Leningrad, carried by refugees fleeing the advancing enemy. Tales of mass executions and widespread brutality fueled the fear and determination to resist. The Soviet leadership issued desperate measures to bolster the city's defenses. Factories were hastily converted to produce weapons and ammunition. Civilians, including women and children, were mobilized to dig trenches and build anti-tank obstacles. They prepared for street fighting, cultural treasures were evacuated or hidden, the Red Army implemented a scorched earth policy, destroying infrastructure and crops. This aimed to slow the German advance. It made it difficult for them to sustain a prolonged siege. However, it also inflicted hardship on the civilian population. The defense of Leningrad was entrusted to the Leningrad Front, commanded by Marshal Kliment Voroshilov, a close associate of Stalin. Despite his shortcomings, Voroshilov rallied his troops, urging them to fight with unwavering courage. "Leningrad is our city," he declared. "We shall defend it to the last drop of our blood." By early September 1941, the German noose around Leningrad was tightening. The Wehrmacht captured Schlisselburg, severing the last land connection to the besieged city. Leningrad was now completely encircled, cut off from the rest of the Soviet Union. The only way in or out was across the icy waters of Lake Ladoga. Despite their precarious situation, the defenders of Leningrad refused to surrender. Inspired by their leader's defiance, they fought with grim determination. The Red Army launched counterattacks, temporarily relieving the pressure. The Luftwaffe continued to bomb Leningrad relentlessly. The city's food supplies dwindled rapidly, leading to starvation. The harsh winter of 1941 to 1942 brought sub-zero temperatures and food shortages. The siege of Leningrad, one of the longest and most brutal sieges, had begun. For the next 900 days, the city's inhabitants would endure unimaginable hardship. Their struggle for survival would become a testament to the human spirit's indomitable will to live. As the summer of 1941 waned, the Wehrmacht's shadow fell heavily upon Leningrad. The once vibrant city, a center of culture and learning, found itself encircled by the enemy. The German strategy shifted to a protracted siege, a testament to the Red Army's tenacious defense. By September 8, 1941, the encirclement was complete, marking the start of a 900-day ordeal. The city was cut off, its lifeline severed by the capture of Schlisselburg. Lake Ladoga became a treacherous lifeline of hope and despair. German forces tightened their grip, bombarding Leningrad's industrial areas and neighborhoods. The Luftwaffe, with air superiority, turned the skies into a maelstrom of fire. Inside the city, panic and confusion reigned as the siege took hold. Food and fuel supplies dwindled, and starvation loomed large. Authorities implemented strict rationing, but it was inadequate. Life in besieged Leningrad descended into a nightmare of deprivation, fear, and constant struggle for survival. The spirit of Leningrad refused to be broken, displaying remarkable courage, resilience, and compassion. The road of life, a perilous route across frozen Lake Ladoga, offered the only hope of survival for Leningrad. Despite constant dangers, it remained a powerful symbol of hope and defiance. Starvation cast a deadly shadow over Leningrad as food rations plummeted. The winter of 1941-42 claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. Despite the horrors, the spirit of Leningraders remained unbroken. Acts of courage, resilience, and compassion defined their resistance. The siege was a battle for Leningrad's soul and cultural heritage. The Leningrad Philharmonic's performance of Shostakovich's Seventh Symphony symbolized resilience. As 1942 dawned, the siege intensified and the situation remained dire. Yet the spirit of resistance in Leningrad remained unbroken. The most relentless enemy was the gnawing hunger that consumed the city. Desperation led to unimaginable lengths to quell the insatiable hunger. Winter had Leningrad in its icy grip. It was brutal. The winter of 1941 and 42 was unbelievably hard. The siege stretched the fabric of society to its breaking point, yet acts of kindness and compassion continued to shine through the darkness. Leningrad transformed into a haunting, spectral city, yet life, tenacious and unyielding, found a way to persist. Even in the darkest depths of the siege, when hope seemed to flicker like a candle in the wind, glimmers of humanity and resilience shone through the darkness, reminding the besieged citizens of Leningrad that they were not alone, that their spirit, their will to survive, had not been extinguished. Acts of kindness, both large and small, offered solace and inspiration. Neighbors shared their meager rations, risking their own survival to help those in greater need. Strangers offered a helping hand to the weak and the elderly, guiding them through the snow-covered streets, their simple acts of compassion offering a ray of warmth in the bitter cold. Artists and musicians, their spirits undimmed by the surrounding devastation, continued to create, their work offering a much-needed escape from the horrors of the siege. Poets recited their verses in crowded bomb shelters, their words offering solace and inspiration. Musicians, their instruments often damaged by the cold, performed concerts in factories and hospitals, their music a reminder of the beauty that still existed in the world. The Leningrad Radio Orchestra, its ranks depleted by starvation and illness, continued to broadcast throughout the siege, its music a lifeline to the outside world, a symbol of defiance against the Nazi propaganda machine. Their most famous performance, a rendition of Dmitri Shostakovich's Seventh Symphony, the Leningrad Symphony, in August 1942, was broadcast live across the Soviet Union, its powerful notes a testament to the city's indomitable spirit, a rallying cry for the entire nation. The Siege of Leningrad, one of the most brutal and prolonged sieges in human history, tested the limits of human endurance, pushing its inhabitants to the very brink of survival. Yet despite the unimaginable hardship, the relentless hunger, the bitter cold, and the constant threat of death, the spirit of Leningrad refused to be broken. The citizens of Leningrad, ordinary men, women, and children, displayed extraordinary courage, resilience, and compassion in the face of adversity. They faced their ordeal with a quiet dignity and an unwavering belief in the eventual victory. They worked tirelessly in factories and hospitals, defended their city with unwavering determination, and nurtured their families with love and devotion, even as their own bodies wasted away. They found strength in their shared suffering, solace in their common humanity, and hope in the belief that their sacrifices would not be in vain. They clung to their culture, their history, and their identity, refusing to allow the Nazis to crush their spirit. They wrote poems, composed symphonies, and performed plays, their art a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. The Siege of Leningrad, a testament to the horrors of war and the resilience of the human spirit, would forever be etched in the annals of history as a symbol of both immense suffering and extraordinary courage. The city, its buildings scarred but its spirit unbroken, emerged from the ordeal as a beacon of hope, a testament to the indomitable will of the human spirit to overcome even the most unimaginable adversity. The year 1942 marked a turning point in the Second World War. The Wehrmacht suffered its first major setback at the Battle of Stalingrad. The Red Army, bolstered by fresh reserves, began to seize the initiative. The Siege of Leningrad continued to hold special significance. For Hitler, capturing Leningrad was an obsession. For Stalin, Leningrad symbolized the indomitable spirit of his people. The strategic importance of lifting the siege became apparent. A successful offensive would relieve the city's suffering. The Soviet High Command began planning offensives to break the siege. Operation Northern Spark aimed to establish a land corridor to Leningrad. Despite initial successes, the offensive stalled. Leningrad remained trapped within the German siege. Undeterred by the setbacks of Operation Northern Spark, the Soviet High Command continued to plan for the liberation of Leningrad. The city's strategic importance, coupled with the immense suffering of its inhabitants, made its liberation a top priority for the Red Army. In January 1943, Soviet forces launched Operation Iskra, a carefully planned two-pronged offensive aimed at breaking the German encirclement of Leningrad. The operation, timed to coincide with the Red Army's victory at Stalingrad, involved the coordinated efforts of the Leningrad Front and the Volkhov Front, commanded by Generals Leonid Govorov and Kirill Meretskov, respectively. The offensive began on January 12, 1943, with a massive artillery barrage that pounded German positions along a narrow stretch of land south of Lake Ladoga. Soviet infantry, supported by tanks and aircraft, then surged forward, their objective to link up with forces from the Volkhov Front advancing from the east. The fighting was fierce and bloody, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The Germans, dug in along heavily fortified defensive lines, fought with their characteristic tenacity, determined to hold on to their hard-won gains. The Red Army, however, fueled by a burning desire to liberate Leningrad and avenge the suffering of its people, fought with a ferocity and determination that surprised even the battle-hardened German veterans. On January 18, 1943, after a week of relentless fighting, Soviet forces achieved a historic breakthrough. Units from the Leningrad Front and the Volkhov Front linked up near the town of Schlisselburg, tearing a hole in the German encirclement of Leningrad. The news of the breakthrough was met with jubilation in the besieged city, its weary inhabitants daring to believe, for the first time in over a year, that their ordeal might soon be over. The Red Army, exploiting its hard-won victory, quickly moved to widen the corridor south of Lake Ladoga. Engineers worked tirelessly to construct a railway line through the newly liberated territory, a vital artery that would soon carry a steady stream of supplies and reinforcements to the besieged city. The Road of Life, the perilous route across the frozen lake, continued to operate, but its importance diminished as the land corridor expanded. The lifting of the siege of Leningrad, though a major turning point in the war, did not mean an end to the fighting. The German forces, though pushed back, remained a potent threat, their artillery still within range of the city. Sporadic shelling continued to plague Leningrad for months to come, a grim reminder that the war was far from over. The city, its infrastructure shattered, its population decimated by starvation and disease, faced a long and arduous road to recovery. But the spirit of Leningrad, its will unbroken by the horrors of the siege, would prove to be its greatest asset in the years to come. The lifting of the siege in January 1943 marked the beginning of a long and arduous journey of recovery for Leningrad. The city, once a thriving metropolis, lay in ruins, its infrastructure shattered, its population decimated by starvation and disease. The physical and psychological scars of the 900-day siege ran deep, a haunting legacy of a time of unimaginable suffering. The immediate task facing the city's authorities was daunting: to restore essential services, rebuild homes and factories, and provide food and medical care for the city's traumatized population. The Red Army, its ranks swelled by returning Leningraders eager to rebuild their city, played a vital role in the early stages of the recovery effort, clearing rubble, distributing food, and providing security. The Soviet government, recognizing the symbolic importance of Leningrad's recovery, poured resources into the city, prioritizing its reconstruction over other war-torn areas. Factories, many of which had been converted to wartime production, were retooled to produce consumer goods, construction materials, and other essential items. Workers, their bodies weakened by years of hardship, labored tirelessly to rebuild their city, their efforts fueled by a deep sense of pride and determination. The process of rebuilding Leningrad was not merely a matter of bricks and mortar, but also of healing the psychological wounds inflicted by the siege. The trauma of starvation, the loss of loved ones, the constant fear and uncertainty had left an indelible mark on the city's collective psyche. The road to recovery, both physical and psychological, would be a long and challenging one. Despite the remarkable resilience of its people and the Herculean efforts to rebuild, Leningrad would forever bear the scars of the 900-day siege. The physical scars, though gradually fading with time, served as a constant reminder of the city's ordeal. The bombed-out buildings, the bullet-riddled walls, the empty spaces where homes and businesses once stood, bore silent witness to the horrors that had transpired. The psychological scars, less visible but no less profound, lingered long after the last German shell had fallen. The survivors of the siege, forever bound by their shared experience, carried with them the trauma of starvation, the loss of loved ones, the constant fear and uncertainty that had defined their lives for over 2 years. Many suffered from chronic health problems, their bodies weakened by years of deprivation. Others struggled with psychological trauma, haunted by nightmares, flashbacks, and a deep sense of loss. The siege had a profound impact on Leningrad's cultural landscape. The city, once a vibrant center of art, music, and literature, had lost many of its finest minds to starvation, disease, and war. The Hermitage Museum, its treasures evacuated during the siege, reopened its doors to a changed world, its collections a poignant reminder of the fragility of culture in the face of barbarism. The Siege of Leningrad, a testament to the depths of human cruelty and the resilience of the human spirit, left an enduring legacy shaping not only the city's physical landscape but also its collective memory and identity. Section 6. Leningrad's Legacy, a Testament to the Human Spirit. The Siege of Leningrad, one of the most harrowing chapters in the annals of human history, stands as a stark reminder of the devastation and suffering that war inflicts upon innocent civilians. The 900-day ordeal, a tale of unimaginable hardship, tested the limits of human endurance, pushing the city's inhabitants to the very brink of survival. Yet, amidst the horrors of the siege, the spirit of Leningrad shone through, a beacon of hope in a world consumed by darkness. The city's inhabitants, ordinary men, women, and children, displayed extraordinary courage, resilience, and compassion in the face of adversity. They endured unimaginable suffering with a quiet dignity and an unwavering belief in the eventual victory. They shared their meager rations with those in greater need, risked their lives to keep vital services running, and clung to their culture and identity, refusing to allow the Nazis to crush their spirit. They wrote poems, composed symphonies, and performed plays, their art a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, even in the face of unimaginable darkness. Leningrad's legacy extends far beyond the city's boundaries. It serves as a testament to the indomitable human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope, courage, and compassion can prevail. It is a story that continues to inspire and resonate with people around the world, a testament to the enduring power of the human will to survive and overcome even the most unimaginable adversity. Section 1. The Siege, an artificial tragedy? A controversial theory questions if Leningrad's suffering was artificially prolonged by Stalin for political gain. Some argue Stalin saw an opportunity to bolster his image as a defender of the motherland. However, the logistical challenges and constant German attacks suggest a desperate struggle for survival. The evidence points to the brutal realities of war, not a calculated act of cruelty. Section 2. The Weight of Sacrifice. The Siege of Leningrad stands as a stark reminder of the immense human cost of war. For 900 days and nights, the city's inhabitants endured unimaginable hardship, their lives upended, their spirits tested to the very limits. Hundreds of thousands perished, their lives cut short by starvation, disease, and the relentless bombardment. The physical and psychological scars of the siege lingered long after the guns fell silent. The survivors, forever bound by their shared experience, carried with them the trauma of those dark days, the memories of lost loved ones, the gnawing hunger, the bitter cold, and the constant fear that had permeated their lives. The city itself bore the weight of sacrifice in its very bones. Buildings lay in ruins, their facades pockmarked by shrapnel, their interiors gutted by fire. The once bustling streets, now eerily silent, were haunted by the ghosts of those who had perished. Yet, amidst the devastation, there was also an undeniable sense of pride, a recognition that the city's suffering had not been in vain. Leningrad had endured, its spirit unbroken, a symbol of the Soviet people's unwavering determination to resist tyranny. The city's sacrifice, etched into the collective memory of the nation, would serve as a powerful reminder of the human cost of war and the importance of vigilance in safeguarding peace. Section 3. Leningrad's enduring spirit. The siege of Leningrad revealed the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. Faced with unimaginable hardship, the city's inhabitants displayed astonishing courage and compassion. They shared their meager rations and risked their lives to keep vital services running. Clinging to their culture and identity, they refused to let the darkness consume them. Their actions became a symbol of hope and inspiration for people around the world. Leningrad's legacy serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of cherishing peace and defending freedom.